Yesterday I made a video about suffering and joy and the relationship between those two things. And today, and I had a similar background, but we're more out in the yard now, so we're going to try this squinting into the sun, see how this goes. But I wanted to take that conversation a bit further, so it might be a good idea to watch that video first. You don't have to, but it's recommended. So the deeper discussion today is around why that would even be useful to have a concept of how to deal with suffering. And I mentioned right in the intro that my old definition of a joyful life was a life without suffering, and how I've come to the realization that's just not part of the plan. If you're living a life, there will be some sort of difficult situation to go through, and I listed off a whole bunch of them, whether that's fear or doubt or worry or sadness or anger or frustration, and there's dozens of others. So why is it even something to think about? Why do I think about this? I think about this stuff all the time, maybe for my own detriment. No, I think about this stuff because it is what my life is made up of, and I don't want to pretend that it's not there. And I think I used to do that a lot, because there are tons and tons and tons of distractions at your fingertips with how to avoid these things. And there's no judgment here of anyone who has habits or patterns or even addictions, because I still have those things that I turn to when I'm feeling these things. But what that means to me is that I'm not in control of my life. I'm a victim of whatever circumstance that I'm in that causes me to do something that I would rather actually not do. Why do I do things that I would rather not do, that I know are harmful to me? Whether that's, pick your roulette of addiction: drinking, doing drugs, sex, masturbation, eating, overeating. It's anywhere where you indulge, or maybe you turn to laziness and maybe you turn on your favorite TV show. Again, there's no judgment, and you can do what you want. We have that free will choice. But if you're anything like me, I study these things, and so does my neighbor's dog. He's got an opinion about this, because I want to what? Where do I want to get to? And that's what I've been careful about in recent months, because there's no end game to get to the point to where it's like, okay, I've solved it all. It's more about the lens through which you engage these things. And once you can practice those in repetition in a healthy way, as I would put the label on it, then that's where the joy comes in. And the healthy way doesn't mean avoiding it to me. It doesn't mean numbing it with these other tempting things. And don't get me wrong, these things they're pleasureful, right? They give you that dopamine hit in the moment, and all of a sudden your problems go away for a little bit. But it's this endless cycle, and I'm sick of it, and I'm done with it. And I want another way, and I have started to discover that other way for me, and I'm just assuming that other people are going through these things as well, and that's why I want to be seen making content here, because two things happen. If other people benefit, great, but this is more for me to continue making my way through what I think and feel about these things. So I want to talk about the ego today, because the ego is related to what I posted yesterday about pain and suffering. And quite often when we're faced with a challenge in our life, we act in accordance with who we think we are. And one of the greatest quotes I've ever heard is that, that's the definition of ego, is the greatest force of the human condition is to act in accordance to who we think we are. So if I am this thing, if I've identified myself as this, then all the behaviors come with it. So we'll take a positive and a negative. If I'm a leader and I face this, then what does a leader do, right? And if I am a loser, we'll say, and I face this, then what does a loser do? So we have these internal dialogues. If you've ever heard somebody, self-sabotage all the time, it's like their way of existing. They'll put themselves down in front of other people. There's an underlying belief there about who that person thinks they are. And so their behaviors, their words, and their thoughts will be in accordance to that identity. And that's what ego is to me. There's many misnomers about ego, and most commonly people associate ego with he has a big ego or she has a big ego. Well, what does that mean? Ego is just how I identify myself. It's a stickiness of identity of who I think I am. And there's a paradox here, because no part of the ego is your true self, but we need some ego. There's no way to exist without ego, because the only way to exist without ego is if you're the only person in the world. And so because by nature we're interactive beings, and there's other people in our lives, in our universe, we see ourselves through the lens of others. A lot of times our identity is made up of our relationship to other people. I am a brother, I am a son, I am a husband, a father, I'm a student, I'm a teacher, any of these things. So it's not inherently bad to have an identity. What is bad in my mind is to be totally blind and unaware of the identities you have that keep you trapped in playing these roles that if you're honest with yourself, you'd rather not be playing. So there's a very fine line to walk with this subject of the ego. And again, I'm not saying there's a right way and a wrong way to do this. This is more of a thought exercise to attempt to optimize a way to engage with what's here, what's in front of us, what's inescapable. And the ego arises most noticeably, when I am faced with one of these challenging emotions. And something happens when I release my grip on who I think I have to be during these times where I am challenged. And if I can use the analogy that, if I grip to an ego of who I think I need to be, or who I think I have to be, or who I think I am, when I'm in these situations, what's the other choice? I guess that's not really an analogy, but a little thought experiment here. So if I'm not that thing, then who could I be? And that's where, this is my definition of God. And I think what I really mean by that is just surrendering. I talked about surrender a lot yesterday. So surrendering to, okay, just give into it. I am not that thing, so what am I? How should I be acting in this situation? How should I meet this challenge in my life? And all of a sudden it opens me up to all the potential possibilities. When you're in ego and you are in identity, you act in one single direction. And when you release that and you admit or say out loud or surrender to not have that identity, then you're opened up to all the possibilities. And then that's where grace comes in, some sort of assistance that you can never predict, you can't put your finger on. And that's why I call it God, is because there's something greater at work than I can do myself. And I'm just at the point in my life where I want to commune and convene with this God force as often as possible, because I fall short a lot. If I'm being honest, if I want the life that I want to have, where it's fully engaged in all of what I'm dealing with all the time, my small self identities are just not capable of, like, it's greater than what my mind can strategize about and outwit. You can't outwit life. And so something happens when I routinely engage in this process of surrendering who I think I am. Then God seems to kind of mold me into who he wants me to be. And that's where it can get really rewarding, because it's like, it's kind of like riding a bike with no, without your hands and the handlebars, like look ma, no hands. You're just riding along and it's steering for you. And there's a lot of trust that goes into getting to that point in your life where, a lot of the things that keep you safe, you start to not do anymore. Or you recognize that you begin to wonder what they're keeping you safe from. And so if you don't do those things, what happens? And it's kind of like an acrobat flying through the air. There's one swing where two acrobats are holding onto each other, and then they release one. And then the release is like that surrender, is giving in to who you think you are and letting that go. And it's trust. It's a trust fall through the air, knowing or hoping that another swing's going to come through and you grab onto that acrobat over there. So it's that whole process of leaping, of leaving something that you're comfortable with in hopes that something will catch you. So maybe we leave it there today. There's more I want to say about this, and we'll make a whole series of videos on the ego. But the easiest way to identify the ego is to identify who I think I need to be, or who I say I am. And it doesn't just have to be a label, but it's all the behaviors that come with it. I have to act like this. I have to do this. A good indicator is how aware you are of the appearance that you take on through other people's eyes. You want people to hold you in a certain light, in a certain identity. And to me, that is a trap. If you have to act a certain way because other people know you that way or expect you to act that way, then you're not living your life. Then you're a victim to the small self identity, the small self ego. And again, there's no judgment. We're going to do a video on judgment soon. But if you want another way, then keep tuning into these videos, because we're going to talk a lot about this and what it takes to get to a life of freedom, to where you're not in control. There's another paradox. Get to a life of freedom where you're not in control. You release the control. You release the desire to control your own life.